I am Atlas Jones. I'm dual national citizenship. I was born in Sydney, Australia, came to the US and been like moving up and down the East Coast. What first interested in me in tattoos was I saw my uncles and my family members that I kind of looked up to. They had like their own body art and they had their own style, and so tattoos have just always been there for me. Every tattoo I have, I can look at it and I remember exactly where I what kind of headspace I was, and who was in and out of my life at that time, and just what I was doing. And it's I don't know, it's like an autobiography of memories. I don't know, it's a fun way to document history, because I think a part of me is terrified that I'll forget everything. My granddad had Alzheimer's, where you start to lose connection with everybody. I actually just lost him. And my biggest fear is that I'll forget everybody I know, because that's what happened to him. So tattoos and stuff is my way of it's like a second memory kind of. My first tattoo was at Lucky Draw 3 in Marietta Square, and it was I got on my thigh right here, there's a skull, and the top of the skull is busted open, and a UFO is above the skull pulling the brain out, and underneath it all it says losing my mind. Because I felt during that time of my life I was just in such a chaotic place. I have "Fight Nazis on Sight" on my chest. I wanted to, you can see my flesh, and it was never connected, and that's always been crossed out Swazi. I left it like that on purpose because I wanted people to know that it was never a cover-up, just logically. Because if I figure if I had blacked it out or put red, so people would be okay, they definitely see it's anti. Because a lot of people make judgments. I'll walk around with my shirt off and people will think that oh, that's some racist shit. And it's literally the opposite. But it's just because of the color of my skin. I'm a sharp. It's Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice. It started in the 80s, ish, in New York. And it's a lot of times a second line of defense for protests and whatnot. Because a lot of times sharps, especially sharps in Atlanta, will go to protests and stuff and form barriers between protesters and the police, just because you can't always trust the police to keep everybody who doesn't agree with what's being protested, whether it's gay rights or human rights or whatever, animal rights, whatever good cause that there's going to be some sort of negative opposition to. Sharps are supposed to be there to protect our people. I've got one in the middle of my chest for it's the thistle. It's a national flower of Scotland, and it's really important to me because my granddad is Scottish, and he's the only positive male role model that I think that I've had in my life. Because whatever, friends' dads, neighbors' dads, they always had some shit going on. Everybody I met that I had to look up to when I was growing up, I didn't want to walk the way they walked. But with my granddad, he never stepped wrong. He was good to my grandma, he was good to my mom, he was good to all the important people in my life. So in my eyes, my granddad has been the best man, hands down. There are tattoos I wish I had gotten, and there's tattoos that I'm glad I never got. Because there was tattoos that I've been talking about with friends that I've lost those friends, and it would be such a painful reminder if I had stuck with that instead of going with I have a big memorial for all my people, and I just kind of gradually add to it. This is actually a matching tattoo with somebody else, and that's really hard to think about. I was in a relationship for a really long time, and I have a honeybee on the top of my head, and there was someone that I thought I was gonna be it was gonna be forever. I thought I was gonna have babies and a home and a marriage, and now my whole perception of what I want for my future is mad different. So I have a honeybee on the top of my head, and there's a face in my sunflower, and they got the same honeybee on their wrist, and they have the little head inside the back of the honeybee, just like mine has it in the sunflower. So that's how those two tie in. You ever heard of the 22 caliber killer? Basically, when they went to find his apartment and like they like did an investigation, there was a hole that he had like punched in the wall or like thrown something or there, and like crazy person, like crazy people do, he had scribbled nonsense around the wall, like around the hole, and it said, "Inside this hole lives the king of suffering." And my tattoo artist thought that that was a really cool idea, and he wanted to do an artist rendition of what he thought the king of suffering would look like. So he put a castle in his mouth, and he gave him like a big cool crown, and I have one more session left for shading because it is a big piece, but all the line work is pretty much done. It's a woman with a knife in her chest, but her head is a rose. Because it's not really supposed to be anyone in particular, it's more the idea of someone trying to love me. My reasoning for getting it is because it was during a time in my life where I felt like heartbreak was following me around everywhere I went. Like I just felt like it was inevitable that something somehow would go wrong, and a relationship that I was hopeful about or trying to build on would just like self-destruct. And I think for a while it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't think I'll ever get to a point in my life where I feel like oh, everything's safe and like everybody involved in my life is permanent. There's like, that's just something that I've been adjusting to. It's like the semi-permanence of everything. I have a Flying Dutchman on my stomach, and like when I first got it, it was like, damn, I love like that aesthetic. And then like my artist was like, do you want me to put do you want me to add anything? And he put, I've got a couple people hanging from the rafters, and like in like 2014 and in 2017, I lost two really good friends, and I had them put into the, so they're always with me. And then there was a girl I went to high school with, and she's not with us anymore either, and she's in there too. And I keep the people that I lose with me, so they're like always with me. Let's see what else. I got skater fries, because in the 90s skater die was like a real big thing, and I just thought like life can be so stressful, and life can be so much that it doesn't always have to be so deep. That like it doesn't always have to be skate or die. Like it doesn't have to be those extremes. It could be skate or fries. Like we could go chill or we could skate. It doesn't have to be that serious. I have a shibari, just a little butt on my side, and that's because I've always been a really big fan of rope play and bondage and that kind of intimacy between people. So I put it on my skin as like a clear indicator of where I stand, and as far as like the things that are my interests. I got Fight Nazis on sight for obvious reasons, because who fucks with Nazis? Life is pain, but love is worth it. If I could give advice to anybody getting tattooed, it would be definitely don't go to anybody unlicensed. Don't go to your friend who just got a machine and he calls it a gun. Don't get tattooed by anybody who calls it a gun. It's a machine, and a professional will know that. Someone who has a license will know that it's a machine. Yeah. I appreciate this like opportunity. This has been a lot of fun.